we can increase their, the numbers of the juvenile mussels, be able to restore back to the river. So that's what mainly we do. We collect the broodstock and then collect the fish host, and for the mussel to be able to get the baby onto located onto the fish, and then keep those infested fish in the aquarium, and then until they drop off, then we'll collect the juvenile mussels, put them into the culture system until they get the size. That's what happens.
That's what's happening. Here.
Yeah.
The award-winning Tennessee WildCast is on the air with the latest on hunting, fishing, boating, wildlife watching, and all things outdoors. Make welcome your host, drummer and outdoor expert novice, Jason Harmon.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this edition of Tennessee WildCast. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching, for listening. We got a great show lined up for you today. We are back at the Cumberland River Aquatic Center here in I guess it's Gallatin, Tennessee.
Yeah, right on the river.
And we're excited to be here. Don King is helping me co-host. Thanks for being back here with us, Don.
Good to be back. Hey, you know what? We normally give a shout out to some radio stations.
Yeah.
How about today we kind of focus on TV a little bit,
Okay.
Yeah.
WildCast is on a few TV stations.
Yeah. We might as well tout those too.
Do you want me to take it from there?
Jump in there.
Okay, all right. Well, you can watch Tennessee WildCast on Wilson County Television, which we're right across the river from Wilson County right now, on Saturdays and Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. So if you like WildCast and you want to tune us in Wilson County, that's how you do it on TV, but we're always on YouTube and all the social media platforms out there, so you can find us there as well.
That's right. And especially, shows like this where we're going to have lots of visuals going on too, to supplement what we're talking about on the radio. Todd does an excellent job of importing and editing in the B-roll and all the pictures that help make the stories make sense.
Definitely. And when we're on location like we are today, there's always a good background to see where we're at.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's cool. Today we are with Dan Waugh and Jason Wisniewski. So glad to have you guys with us, or thanks for having us in your space today.
Thank you for everybody.
Yeah.
I'm excited to learn about you guys, learn about who you are and what you do for the agency, and then get into more about mussels. Today is all about mussels.
Yes.
And I'm excited to dive in. So first, let's meet Dan. Dan, tell us about yourself and kind of how you got to where you are today.
Yeah. I'm at the Cumberland River Aquatic Center, and originally I'm from China. That's away from U.S.
A ways away.
Yeah. So I was at National Institute, and I was a pearl culture expert, which we use the mussel to produce pretty pearls. And that's how I got to, work with the freshwater mussel. And back 1997, a professor, his name is Dick Neves, and he's retired. He was the professor at Virginia Tech.
Tech.
Yeah, they have been working on the conservation of the freshwater mussels, and they're trying to propagate and grow out a mussel for the restoration. But there's kind of bottleneck over there, and they could propagate the mussel, the juvenile, and to certain age, 1 month or 2 months, then they can have the issues to grow them out to the size for release.
Really?
So that's the purpose. He got the information from the colleague when they had international meeting in U.S. So they introduced him to my institute to meet me in China back 1997.
Okay.
So they seeked you out. They were looking for you.
But that's what I got him to, because they knew how the mussel culture has been in China over more than 2,000 years. So they want to know, how do you guys do that? And so that's what I get him to see how we, grow out the mussel in China.
Yeah.
So that's how we got connected. And then in 1999, he invited me to visit Virginia Tech as a visiting scholar. So I worked with them for half a year and still went back to work for the institute in China until 2003. And there's a project between China and Virginia Tech. So I got to visit Virginia Tech again. And in the meantime, as a visiting scholar, I enrolled their master program.
Okay.
So I got my master's study in Virginia Tech, and then worked with the one species called pink hillsbrit, which is original from Tennessee River. And Dunhop provided specimens for me to do my project in Virginia Tech. That's how I did the pole culture, tests using the species from Tennessee.
Awesome.
So, and then after that, after I graduate, I started to work for the Virginia Tech as the monocologist, also the manager for the freshwater Mussel Conservation Center in Virginia Tech for 12 years. And we have been share our, findings and success, grew out the mussels to the size. That was a big jump for the, for this mussel culture society. That's where back to David Sims, he mentioned during his talk.
Yeah.
And I present back the results back 2006. And then after that, they start to work around, how to keep the mussel, use the natural water body that maintain, like river water or pond water or lake water or whatever.
Yeah.
As long as it's a natural water body, be able to produce, a bunch of juvenile mussels. That was like kind of connection with all those with Tennessee monocologists to that time. So then back to how I got here was, and this is kind of a new facility. We know we got the broodstock was from Tennessee.
Yeah.
When I was in Virginia, because from Clinch River, Powell River, and Duck River, and Norchak River. But we already talked about there's could be a possible program here.
Yeah.
But we do need that mussel propagation and restoration activity happening at the Tennessee, in Tennessee state. That's how I decided to electric Dunhop and the Bill Leaves and all those. We talked during the meeting. They brought me over here and start the program with mussel propagation in Tennessee. That's how I got over here.
That's great. Yeah, it's like we know who we need. Yeah. They found you and they got you here.
Yeah, I'm so happy to be part of this family.
Yeah,
that's great.
Well, we're glad to have you. I know the work that you do here is awesome, and some of the talks we've had beforehand, the processes and the production and the successes that you've had come out of here, it's amazing. So we're glad to have you with the agency. And
not just me and my colleagues, and they all just work together,
Definitely.
And our partners like Fish and Wildlife Service and the TVA and U.S. Army Corps Engineer and all those, and the other side of like Tennessee Tech, MTSU. We have all those kind of partners work together.
That's great.
In the mussel facility outside of the Tennessee, Virginia, Kentucky, Alabama, we all work together to make it happen. Yeah.
It's a big happy family when it comes to science and learning and trying to make things happen across state boundaries. It's not a football game. It's not Alabama against Tennessee. They're working together.
Together. It's a big family.
Yeah, that's great. Well, Jason, I think this is your first time on WildCast. Is that right?
That's correct.
Introduce yourself. Let folks know who you are and what you do. You work with mussels a lot, too. That's why we got you here today. But
yeah, so I'm Jason Wisniewski. I'm the Mussel Conservation Coordinator for TWRA. Grew up in Southwest Pennsylvania. Again, I guess I'm from another country, too, depending on who you talk to. But, I didn't get into mussels kind of the way that a lot of people do. Back in the time I was getting into them, it was one of those things of, just happening into it. I didn't lay awake at night as a kid dreaming of being a malacologist or anything. But I got an internship with the Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission years ago. Found out that I really like doing aquatic science.
Yeah.
And, one of the things, I had some great mentors there that I worked with, and they said, well, if you really want to make a career out of it, try to go to graduate school. So looked all over for graduate schools, wanted to work with fish, and one of the places that that I'd looked at actually was with the Barron's top minnow, one of our rare species we have here in Tennessee.
Oh, yeah.
And Dr. Jim Laser over at Tennessee Tech, he was working on a project, and I had asked him about the project, and he kind of said, well, would you be interested in working with mussels? And I wasn't having a whole lot of success looking for graduate schools. So I said, well, maybe I need to humble myself a little bit and do something. And then once I'm done with that, then I'll have the degree and can go work with what I want. And so I came down to the Cookeville for about 2.5 years, studied mussels there for my master's degree. One of the cool things was it was something that a young scientist could really pioneer because there was so little known on freshwater mussels. And, it was something I kind of stuck with. I figured I'll give it a couple years, move home, work with fish. And, I ended up getting a job right out of school with the Georgia Department of Natural Resources. Worked there for 15 years as a mussel biologist. And then about, I guess, just under 4 years ago now, we moved to Tennessee and kind of a homecoming of sorts, I guess. Coming back to where I cut my teeth working with mussels. And, there's no greater... There's the southeastern U.S. is the hotbed of mussel activity, and between Alabama, Tennessee, and Georgia, you're talking the top 3 states anywhere in the world pretty much for freshwater mussels. So having the opportunity to work with them here is just a real blessing.
Yeah.
I learned something about Jason just now.
What's that?
Tennessee Tech.
Yeah.
I had no clue.
I'd forgot, but yes, I do remember. But I didn't realize he worked for Pennsylvania for a little while.
I did.
Yeah.
That was back doing area fisheries management. So, like I said, I did more trout work, reservoir work, just a lot of the traditional fishery stuff that most people are familiar with. But, one of the things that really stuck with me when I was up there was was our area manager and supervisor and just a good friend now who's just retired in the last couple of years. But, he said, you know what, you don't got to like this stuff, but you have to respect it. And that has stuck with me all through my career. And a lot of people, when you get the non-game side of things, some people, give those folks a little bit of a hard time, a little jab here and there. We all like to mess around with each other. But that was something I really took, into the future and everything that I do. And, I think it's just, when it comes down to it, everything's connected.
Yeah.
Especially in the natural world.
Definitely. Everything is affected by everything. Or there's a song one time, everything's a thing, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Hey, one of the things that I know that Todd's going to work in, and maybe we could use that photo, but kind of an overall picture of mussels and the value of mussels. That photo that you showed us, you're showing us, is invaluable. Just the experiment you were showing us about the where was it? Was that in? Where was it? You did that?
In you mean the mussel propagation?
The aquariums.
Oh, the aquarium.
The filtration.
Yeah.
It's filtration of the freshwater mussels.
That was at Virginia Tech.
That
right?
was in Virginia
Okay.
Tech. Yeah.
And anyway, just kind of describe that picture as you're seeing it, as we're seeing it here in sequence. Just kind of tell us a little bit about that.
Okay.
I love this visual.
Yeah.
It proves how important they are.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yep.
because that is, because probably we need to explain about the mussel itself. It's a filter feeder. They filter all the time.
Filtering all the time.
All the time in the water. In other words, actually, they help us remove all the particles, whatever in the water. It's like cleaner for the river.
Exactly.
So, average mussel can filter 30 liters of the water within a day, 24 hours.
Wow.
So that's the experiment is a kind of trying to get the outreach program out for the public to see how fascinating of the freshwater mussels, how they help us out. That's why we did 33 hours. We put the one tank with the mussel, one tank without mussel, start with all same water source with the muddy water. Then every 8 hours, take the picture and then to see how the mussel process the muddy water. So that's kind of cool thing. And also we know they do not like fish. They do not move much. So they always be around the small area. And so that is another good thing for the mussel. That's our water quality indicate. So for example, if there's something happening and the first thing you see is something come up, the dead mussel, because they cannot move. But the fish, they maybe move a little bit. So that's what we also call them the aquatic indicate for the water quality as well. So
yeah, it's neat to see in those images how it cleared up in a short amount of time, really.
Yeah, quick.
Yeah, very quick.
Yeah.
And you mentioned they don't move much. Could you say a mussel, or you could say it didn't move a mussel?
No, they can move. Mussel has the foot.
They have a foot, yeah.
They only have one, so they run in circles a lot.
Oh, it's
That's what you do sometimes.
turned into comedy hour now.
Oh, man.
Oh, so I had on here the life cycle of freshwater mussels. So let's just touch on that a little bit, what the cycle is and how that works.
All right. So that's what actually this is also related to what we basically doing here. So the life cycle is we start from the parents. We call male and female adults. Once they get the female get gravid, that means they already have the babies inside in the female. We call that larvae. Most other animals, but for the mussel, we have a specific name for them. It's called locadia.
Okay.
So when they get to the spawning season, the female mussel mostly will release their locadia, their baby, to the water. Then when those locadia meet right host, which is fish, then the fish will take those babies on their body or on their gill most of the time, and then provide nutrients for the locadia for them to be able to metamorphosize to the juvenile stage. Then once they get to the juvenile stage, then they drop off from the fish, then start to their life cycle and become a subadults and then become adults. That's the life cycle for the freshwater mussels.
Wow.
So it's very complicated compared to the fish because they need fish as a host for their parasite period. If they do not meet right host, they just die. So that's how this fauna become most endangered compared to the other faunas of freshwater mussels. Naturally, the chance for them to meet the right fish host is really rare, maybe 1 per million
Wow.
chance. But for us, because there are so many endangered species of the freshwater mussels, and we need to work with. So if we get the opportunity for them to be able to manually make this production, then we can increase their, the numbers of the juvenile mussels, be able to restore back to the river. So that's what mainly we do. We collect the broodstock and then collect the fish host, and for the mussel to be able to get the baby onto the located onto the fish, and then keep those infested fish in the aquarium, and then until they drop off, then we'll collect the juvenile mussels, put them into the culture system until they get the size. That's what happens.
That's what's happening. Here.
Yeah.
So does that fish matter in the wild? Does it matter what type of fish?
Does.
Okay.
For the mussels, that's a host specific. And they only work with certain species, or maybe just one species of the host. And that's why we have to keep different species of the fish in here for the different species of the mussels.
Wow.
Yeah. There are a couple of species they can work with multiple species of the freshwater mussels, but mostly they are host specific.
Okay. That's pretty cool. That's neat. So
I think one other thing that I've always been intrigued with is how the mussels can display, I don't know if I'm using the right word or not, but
the right word.
to invite that host fish to come up and
meat.
Yeah. Meat. I'll put it that way. Yeah. But so the fish is kind of unsuspecting, really.
Yeah.
They're not.
Nature is amazing. That's how they happen naturally. Some mussels, they during the spawning season, they will have kind of display. They can mimic like crayfish,
Right.
or they mimic like a minnow on their mantle. And when they have the baby inside, so they attract, we call lure. They attract the fish to get close to approach, the either the minnow or the worm.
Yeah.
That time they will just release their localia, then get onto the fish. That's kind of naturally happen.
That made me think. I wonder if these mussels are buying their fishing licenses.
May have to talk to marketing about that. See if they're buying those licenses. Yeah, I think it's neat how that all happens. You were talking about the oyster.
Yeah, oyster mussel.
Yeah, it opens up and it's a real white display.
Right.
And that attracts that fish to come by, but it closes up on it.
Yep.
And releases it. So tell us how that works.
Okay, yeah, that is kind of a cool thing, and because the mussel, they cannot move that much. So this is one type of thing when they use the color to attract the fish, mostly for the dollars. So the oyster mussel, when they get during the spawning season, they will have their two valves or two shells wide open. Then their mantle become like really bright white or blue. So when the dollar kind of trying to get to inside, see what kind of new environment or new house. So they try to find house. When they get into that two valves, they will just close the two shells and start to release their baby. Then get on the fish. Then after like a minute, then they let it go.
Yeah.
So that's completed their infestation time. This is just very cool. And some fish, they can release the congruence. We call it's like a pack of the localia inside.
Okay.
And then those will look like a kind of worm. That's how fish like to.
Right. Okay.
So by the time
Going
they
after the worm.
go after the worm, then they got infested. So that's how they got the babies on the fish.
Cool.
Yeah, so.
Well, and that one we were talking about, the oyster.
Yeah.
That's a small. It's on a
small.
darter or something
Yeah,
like that, a
yeah.
smaller fish, right? But
Yeah.
then there are some that the fish host could be a bass, a fairly good sized bass, or
Correct.
catfish or something like that, maybe.
Yes,
Okay.
of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. You already probably see we have a large size of your fish in here. They are large mussel bass, small mussel bass, and even we have some sauger here.
Okay.
Walleye. They are all the hosts for different species of freshwater mussels.
Wow. That's neat. So those fish are probably, depending on the type of lure, depends on which fish and which mussel meet, right? Yeah, that's cool. All right. I had on my list here to talk about the diversity, and Jason, you mentioned that kind of early on when you were introducing yourself, but talk about some of the diversity. And I think Alabama may have the most diverse population of mussels. Is that right?
Yeah,
We're
so
always challenging that.
I guess
the Tennessee drainage.
well, there's some interesting things. You got to watch how you want to break stuff up like that. But I always say is geopolitical boundaries don't matter much when it comes to wildlife.
That's
right.
Yeah.
But just to give you an idea, I think we can say that the world matters. And in the world, there's about 840 freshwater mussel species. So that's across the entire globe. The vast majority of them are in the New World, so that'd be North America and South America. And particularly in North America, there's about 360 of those 840 worldwide species here in Mexico, the U.S., and Canada.
Wow.
And then when you break it down just to the United States, we have about 300 species. So that's a substantial portion of the global biodiversity. And really within the United States, most of them are centered in the southeastern U.S., particularly Alabama, which has about 185 species. In Tennessee, I think we're up to right around 141. And then Georgia's at about 125 species roughly. And then once you get out of those three states, Kentucky's the next closest with only 100 species. So, of course, I mentioned about the geopolitical boundaries. When it comes to aquatic species, we deal with watersheds. That's the important part. So, the one interesting part is, the Cumberlandian fauna, we'll call it, or Cumberlandian region, which consists of the Cumberland River and the Tennessee River, everything that drains into those two systems into the Ohio. That's pretty much the most biologically diverse watershed in the United States for sure, if not the world.
Yeah.
And we have about 110 species in those 2 river systems. The interesting part is about 31 of those species occur nowhere else but those river systems.
Wow.
And then there's this forgotten river system of Tennessee that nobody really talks about a whole lot because we just have a slight little sliver. It's the Conasauga.
Okay.
And, it's actually the only drainage we have in Tennessee that drains to the Gulf Coast, or at least the eastern Gulf Coast, we'll say. And we have 128 square miles of the Conasauga River in Tennessee. And that's of our 43,000 square miles, I think, of area. But that little 0.3% of Tennessee's land area had 36 species in it at one time. So that's about 25% of our biodiversity, or mussel biodiversity in Tennessee, came from that 128 square miles. So that's pretty impressive. But because we have the Tennessee system, the Cumberland system, and just that little sliver of the Conasauga, we really get a wide diversity of freshwater mussels. Now, with that wide diversity and just large number of species comes imperilment, and right around 60 to 70% of our mussels in Tennessee are at risk of extinction. Currently, we have, I think, 48 species that are on the federal list for endangered or threatened species under the U.S. Endangered Species Act. And we have 2 more that have been proposed. I think they're awaiting final listing here any time now. I thought it would have been done in the last year, but you know how processes like that work with all the different strings you have to go through and processes. But so that'll get us up to 50, and then there's several more that are actually in the works to be evaluated to see if they need to be listed.
And then that ends up being one of the focuses of this operation, isn't it? I mean, the endangered.
That's what we all focus, just propagate and restore all those endangered species. And trying to do our best, see if we can get a couple of them down list or delist. I always say that's my retirement goal. Maybe I won't be able to finish, but our young generation, they can continue work on that.
Yeah, you're training them up. Training them up. Well, this flew by.
I know.
We had more on our list. I had fun names. What's some real quick fun names of these diverse species of mussels? They have funny names.
Oh, you got the Duck River darter snapper is one of
Rabbit's
our
foot.
endemic, the rabbit's foot. A lot of pig toes, deer toes, fawn's foots. I'm trying to think. The salamander mussels are a really cool one because it uses a salamander as a host.
Okay. Cool.
So there's all sorts of interesting names, and it's really neat to look back and see what some of the old names were in the old fisheries reports.
Come up with their own names and create new ones when they find, these new species.
Occasionally that happens.
Yeah.
We do discover some new species every once in a while.
Yeah. Well, this has been a fun show. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Jason. We'll have you back. We got more to discuss. We want to jump into the production of mussels and what happens behind us. We haven't touched on that yet, so that's going to be the next show. But we'll keep you around for another one. How's that sound?
Thank you so much.
All right, y'all. This is Tennessee WildCast. Thank you for tuning in. Thanks for watching, for listening. Remember, tnwildlife.org for all things wildlife in Tennessee, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for tuning in. Stay connected with TWRA by visiting our website at tnwildlife.org and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Hey, it's all about Tennessee wildlife. It's what we do. Tennessee WildCast will be on the air again next week. We'll see you then.